Okay, so in this video you'll be needing a ruler, an ink pen, black and white paint, ochre, blue, red, yellow paint, fine sanding paper, lacquer, toilet paper, a brush, an old rack, and something very long and straight, which you can use to draw lines with. In this case, I used a curtain hanger, and of course the board that you want to paint the battle grid on. Okay, so let's start off here by looking at the finished product. This is my battle grid. It's painted on both sides, so I have easy access to two different habitats and two very different settings. It's an old IKEA table, 120 centimeters times 60, which I turned into this battle grid. So here we're starting off with the back side. I had to fill out the holes from the legs in order to get a nice even surface to work with. Unfortunately, I don't have the footage of the top layer, as I'm really happy about it. So you'll have to make do with the second go of it. Here I'm using some white paint I had from a previous project, but you can also use some normal acrylic paint as well. Just make sure that you let it dry up and harden before you work on the secondary layers. It doesn't have to be a perfect coat, it just has to be enough so you can draw some grid lines on top of it. Yeah, there you can see I've removed the bristle from the brush, and then I'm making sure all the brush strokes are uniform so they don't have some annoying eye-catching effects. Now we're going to make the grid. So I make a small dot every 2.5 centimeters, which means I'll be getting a nice grid when connecting all the dots later on of 2.5 and 2.5 centimeters, meaning that's equal to a 5-foot square in D&D terms, which is what you need to be moving around with. Yeah, you can see it's a bit of an unconventional tool I'm using to draw these lines with, but it's what I had access to in my apartment, and it got the job done, except for the second line, because my index finger was a little too far out, so I drew a bend around it by accident. I was pretty annoyed about it, like messing up on the second line already, even though I knew I had to be careful about it. But I was focused afterwards, and then I didn't make up any more mistakes like that. And yeah, you can see, even though it's not a perfect tool, it gets the job done. And yeah, since it's 120 times 60 centimeters, that means you'll be getting a grid of a total of 240 times 120 feet, which is plenty for most encounters. Here I switched sides because it was a more pleasant working position for me to draw the lines in, and I had to adjust because the table is pretty low right now, so it wasn't the best working position I was in. So let's get on to the paint job here. You'll notice that I'm using a lot of ochre paint because I want a desert feel to the setting. Like it could be some old caves and desert ruins or a temple or something like it. And here at first you saw I just put on some paint, but that was too thick, so I immediately just added some water to the brush and then just painted over. So the base layer here is transparent enough so you can see the grid, but it's not dominant. And you have to be it has to be easy to see where the grid lines are, otherwise it'll just forfeit its purpose. Here I'm messing up twice actually. You can see the first one. I hadn't let the base layer dry enough, so I was actually just removing some of the ochre paint. And the second thing is very easy to see right now because that corner is way too dark. And I shouldn't start with the corner, and you shouldn't either. Start working on the center of the grid and then adjust from there. You want some kind of shading effect to the edges, but that was way too much. I realized that. You could see that on my body posture as well. So I added some water to the black paint, and then I just was able to wipe it off with some toilet paper. And now I knew I had to be really careful not adding too much dark values onto the battle grid, and I also had to be really careful not peeling off or scraping off the base layer. So what you see here is I'm using the rack and I'm adding a lot of different colors of paint on it, and then I'm mixing it on the palette at first, and then I'm just smudging it around. There's no real technique or any fancy to it. I'm just smudging things around, really, looking for interesting shapes and forms and colors. And I want it to be varied. I don't want any patterns to it. I want something which is different and interesting, so I can use it to set up encounters in the future, like adding scatter terrains in different areas, and then it's just having some play between the colors. Here you can see I scraped off a white line of on the grid, and that was because the paint had softened up too much. So I used my finger to dot paint back onto it, because the paint around that area would be very, I knew it would be vulnerable, so I had to be really careful, and it's just easier to do with a finger than with a rack. You can be more accurate and more gentle with your movements. It's starting to look quite nice at this point, but I still need the framing of the canvas, so I want something darker colors around the edges to sort of give an edge to the battle grid. Here again, you can see I'm struggling with that paint. And then I touch the grid, and then some more paint peels off. So be mindful about that. Don't make as many mistakes as I did here. You can be a little bit more patient, then it makes life easier. And yeah, here again, working on the corner and the framing on the outside of the grid. And it's starting to look pretty good. And I was able to correct that mistake I made in the corner in the first place. So yeah, well, mistakes will happen, and trying to avoid them entirely that's just mission impossible, really. So just try to know how to recover from it. That's the important part. If you look at my face right now, don't judge me too harshly. I'm just painting black on a flat surface on the edge of the table right now, but apparently I have to make up all these weird faces of concentration or whatever. I don't know why I did that, but it looks a bit funny. In a second you'll get a glimpse of my palette, and try and pause the video and then see how many different colors are on the palette and also on the rack. And all those colors, they have been blended onto the battle grid to create these interesting shapes and forms and colors. And now it's time to preserve all the work we put into it. So I'm lacquering the grid. Here it's really important to read the information on your products, knowing how long it has to dry before you can give it a second coating, or maybe a third if you want that. And I also learned something here, because yeah, now you can see I'm making uniform strokes here, but the lacquer will start to dissolve some of the paint. So you can see on the front edge there are some white marks, and that's because I had been scraping off paint by putting too much tension from the brush whenever I tried to align the brush strokes of the lacquer. I didn't know this at first. I saw it later on and I was annoyed, so I tried to do better. Here I'm sanding down the surface of the battle grid, making sure if there is any excess lacquer in some spots and maybe there are some waves to it, that I even it all down for the second coating. Then I'm removing the dust here with a wet rag, and then I'm letting it dry for some time again. Now we're ready for the second coating. Again, I'm applying a decent layer of lacquer at first, making sure it's divided well all over the surface. And then once that's done, then I'm making these uniform brush strokes you can see around it. I'm also making sure that I get some coating on the sides of the canvas, not the canvas, the battle grid, to protect that as well. And now just making those uniform strokes, and then I have to clean all the excess lacquer on the bottom, and then we are pretty much done. And here is a shot of the finished product. It's elevated, so you can put stuff underneath it while having good view to what's going on the battlefield. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, found some inspiration of your own, and perhaps even learned a thing or two. Should you be interested in supporting the channel, aside from just throwing a like and subscribing, then I'm a published author. I write books, I paint illustrations, and I got a few other things in the works as well. You can see some of my work at tscout.com. There you can also find links to social medias, as well as places where you can buy books and artwork. Any support will be greatly appreciated, even if it's just a click or two to help fight the algorithm. So thanks for watching once again. Hope to see you again soon.